5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. All engine liftoff. We have a liftoff. 32.
So the other day, as I was out filming with my Sony a7S II, my battery grip, my Sigma 20mm f1.4 lens, I just got to think how heavy this thing is. It's literally the size of a newborn baby, and just carrying around is hard. Trying to aim without a screen too, it makes it even harder. And it made me start to miss my Panasonic Lumix G7, which is no longer with us on this channel. But the thing was small. It had a flip-out screen, a mic jack, and the lenses were tiny, so you can just take it anywhere you want. And it didn't do too bad in low light. My rationale for selling it was I wanted something that I can interchange my Sony glass with because I had the A7R already. But I miss that tiny loadout that you can get with a crop sensor or a micro four thirds. That said, I made us a list because lists are the cool thing these days. Of all the cameras that you can get under $350 that would be great for YouTube. Now keep in mind that my list is subjective, and off of these cameras you can get the more expensive or the least expensive Mark 1, 2, 3 of these, but I just chose the ones that were most enticing for me and the ones that I feel that you can get the most bang for your buck. Now I kept it at $350 because then it gives you money to spare for either new glass, an external audio recorder, which I think is a lifesaver and you should always invest in, especially on YouTube, because it's going to set you apart. But enough wandering around. Let's get to the video. Alright. First we got to get into our editing program. Choose our typeface. Wow, must be the Chiller font. Now this won't be any ordinary graph. It'll be one of these bubble ones. Now we'll have cameras centered towards photography right here. Video centered on this side. And then of course, all around is right in the middle. Now let's lay down some ground rules for this one. First order of business, they have to be at least full HD. They're gonna have to be crop sensors just for this video. And they have to meet $350 with at least a kit lens. Looks pretty good to me. Yeah, hopefully I can do something about that post-production, but to note for this list, I'm going to go from least expensive to most expensive tier by tier because I think all of these cameras have perks and quirks that will be great for each individual. Okay, so I will mention some pros and cons to each body themselves as well, and also, again, keep in mind that you can go with the Mark 1 or the Mark 3 versions of whatever cameras are on here. Just expect to pay more or less per camera, obviously. These cameras are just the ones that entice me the most. We'll start out with the photo tier, and the least expensive of the group, which is the Pentax K50, and you can expect to find this for around $280 with the kit 18 to 135mm lens. Now, this camera is fully weather sealed, which is awesome for cold climates like the Midwest where I'm from, and battery life is crucial up here. And I'm just thinking back to the cold winter vortex we had and my Sony batteries that are already hating anything I do outside in the cold weather. This would be a great option for that. Next on the list, we have the Canon 7D, which with the kit lens will run you about $300. This has 8 frames per second continuous shooting, a magnesium body, an audio jack, and Magic Lantern, since you're on a Canon system. If you're not familiar with Magic Lantern, it, quote, hacks, unquote, your camera so you have a little bit more options, such as focus peaking, raw uncompressed video files as well, which is great for grading if you know how to do it. A con to the Canon 7D, however, it does have that fixed screen, which to me isn't a deal breaker. My next video, I'll show you a workaround that I found for not having a screen if you want to vlog with one. And the final camera we have in the photo tier would be the Olympus OMD EM5, which is going to run about $350 with the kit lens. This is touchscreen. It's very compact. It has 5-axis in-body stabilization, 9 frames per second continuous shooting, a magnesium body, full HD at 60 frames per second, but a con would be there's no audio input. So now we're on the both tier, and the very first camera I'm going to list is very near and dear to my heart because it was my first introduction to the Sony lineup, and that is the Sony a3000. Now you might be wondering why I included this on the list. It's because it's full HD and it's very cheap now. I've been seeing these on eBay for just the body alone, around $80. $200 with the kit lens, of course, but being that cheap, you can double up on bodies. Now, that would be a game changer for YouTube. That way you don't have to do jump cuts like that. A con, however, is there's no audio input and it does have a fixed screen. Next in line, we have the Nikon D5200, and this has an articulating screen and an audio jack, full HD at 1080p. But for the same price, you can also expect to find the Nikon D3300, which will shoot full HD at 60 frames per second. But a con to this would be there's a fixed screen and it has a 10-minute recording cap at full HD. So keep that in mind. But both of these are around $275. So next in the both lineup, we have the Fujifilm X-A3. Now that would be around $330. Now this is great because it's small, has a touchy, flippy screen so you can see yourself, full HD at 60 frames per second. Cons would be there's no viewfinder, however, and no mic jack. Alright, so this next camera might be a little bit controversial, subjective, in my own opinion, but I think it might be the best camera of any of them on this list, and that is the Sony a77, because I've been seeing this for around $350 lately with a lens. And this is great because it has a flip up and down screen, fully weather sealed, 12 frames per second continuous shooting, full HD at 60 frames per second, and in-body stabilization. Okay, so an initial drawback to the a77, one, is that weird hot shoe, which won't allow for any third-party jacks, so you can't use your own Rode microphone. You have to use a Sony system for external audio. That, and it's an A-mount system, so we might not be seeing any new lenses for that in the near future. However, you can go back and get some old Minolta glass. And I have a great little 50mm f1.8 on my SLR, which we'll go over in another video. So to start out the video tier list, we're going to go with the Canon EOS M. Now you can find this for $150 to $175 without the lens. With some glass, maybe about $250. However, this has a tiny body, and with that magic lantern, you can get 2.5K raw, cheap, $250. That's some cinema quality. However, there is no in-body stabilization, so that footage has a high chance of looking pretty jittery. It's coming from a somewhat dead system, but you can get an EF to EOS adapter and use your own Canon glass for it. Now you can also find that M3 version and the M100 for a little bit more. With those, you can expect a flippy screen in 1080p at 60 frames per second as well. Alright, so next in the video tier, we're going to go with the Sony a5000. Now the reason I have the a5000 and the a3000 on this list is because of the two different body shapes. Now the a5000 has that newer, slimmer style, which they're still using to this date. So it makes it small. It has an articulating screen, and these cameras are fantastic in low light. In fact, I would say they're one of the best on this list if you're looking for going out at night. But there is no mic jack, so expect to get an external audio recorder if you want to record better sound. Did my light just go out? Alright, so next in line for the video tier, we have the Canon T3i, which can be found for around $270 now. And man, this was a great camera in the day. I think it's still a very valid camera. It just feels great in the hands. It has a nice flippy articulating screen, a mic jack, and honestly everything you'd really need for YouTube. You can also find the T2i for a little bit cheaper. And man, just something about these early Canon Rebels just feels great in your hands. So some cons, I guess, for these old Rebels is you won't get that sweet dual pixel autofocus that they're known for. Pretty standard video specs, but the full HD looks... Alright, so the last camera we have on the video tier would be the Canon 60D. Now you can find this with a lens for about $325. With it, you get a nice little swivel screen, an audio jack, and you have access to Magic Lantern. However, this is in a weird spot from its predecessors where the 50D didn't yet have video. You can also hack that with a Magic Lantern and get raw footage, no sound however. And its younger brother, which was the 70D, because that had the game-changing dual pixel autofocus, which is a still enticing DSLR for me if you could find it, but I don't think you can find that quite yet for under $350. I mean, the 60D is great, but if you had the option, I would go with the 70D because then you get that dual pixel autofocus, which is truly a game changer, especially with that touchscreen. And again, the 60D doesn't have a touchscreen, but it's not a bad camera in any respect. So some honorable mentions would be anything in the Panasonic family. So that would be the GX85, which is just a tiny bit out of this price range, and that's about $400. You get in-body stabilization. You have not quite an articulating screen, but it goes down and up. Doesn't have a mic jack, but you have 4K. You have full HD at 60 frames per second. And also, there's that Lumix G7, which was, when I bought it, $325 a couple years back, which is insane. The Lumix G7 introduced me to 4K, an articulating screen, a mic jack, and it was just a fantastic camera. But again, it's a tiny bit out of this range. If you can find it this cheap, though, I would go with those two. Those are great cameras. And that Micro Four Thirds system is just so pocketable. I mean, you can take it anywhere. So that is my list. Again, there's cameras around these prices, more or less, and different marks, different versions of each one that you can go with. But these, again, are just the most enticing ones to me. If you agree or disagree with this list, leave a comment below. And again, I just want to say, no matter what camera brand you are, you don't have to be so touchy if your camera didn't make this list. For frick's sakes, I mean, cameras, anything's going to do. Speaking of, we're going to do segments looking at cameras throughout the years that were just fantastic. And for the fanboys out there that watch this, I'm sorry if your camera didn't make the list. It's great. Any camera that you have is a great camera. It's the person behind it. I can make anything look like garbage if I absolutely wanted to. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you again next week.